Alright, I'll start out this tutorial or this behind the scenes by saying, just look at this kitty. Just look at this kitty. I don't know. Something about kitties. Just saying. Just a nice kitty. Anyways, so I wanted to do a video today talking about mod shapes. Every time I get a particular comment, it will trigger me to do a video deviating from my course list, which is fine. It means more videos for you guys on my daily tutorial tour. So the first one I wanted to talk about was Mod Line, which, basically new to Box Cutter 716, we added this thing called Mod Shapes, which basically is Box has the mod shape of line box, where you can basically draw a line and turn it into a box. It's just really a constraint system for Ngon. And with Ngon, you have the ability to, basically draw your normal Ngon, as you know and love, possibly hate if you're one of these people asking for curves all the time. And then you can turn it into panel mode, which in panel mode, you can actually press T to adjust the thickness. You can press B to bevel. Sometimes you have to press T to remove the thickness and then press B to bevel. Actually, what is going on there? We draw a line and then we press B and we get that as a result. So I wonder what causes that. I bet it's something to do with the sorting, because we increase the bevel, it's fine. We start playing with it, it starts getting the results that we want. So I'm actually going to close Blender, just open it up again, and just make sure the out of the box experience is exactly what we promise. Like I said, I always want to make sure that we're on the same page with these videos. So I mean, y'all are just kind of seeing the behind the scenes work that goes into making this stuff happen. Also, I'm going to remove music, even though I'm still listening to music. I just don't want YouTube censors going nuts. So we're like, hey guys, we have line box. Check it out. You draw a line. You can press T to adjust the thickness. You can press B to adjust the bevel. And things will get weird until you extrude it. And that might be something with the way sorting is done on the 2D level versus 3D, because we see in the 3D case it works perfectly fine, but we see on a 2D level that it possibly breaks down. In fact, even right here, it's working the way it's supposed to, except we end up with some of these scenarios like this, which I guess is just a matter of us increasing the bevel amount. So it could really just be a matter of what the default bevel is set to, saving me from having to send a support issue up the chain. I really got to double check these things, because I drive the team crazy with my personal support issues that I report as a report of people reporting support issues to me. So I'm trying to minimize that insanity so that people can rest in between these projects and maybe not think about self-termination and other things like that, because hops is supposed to be fun. But the storms of complaints definitely turn things into a very serious deal. So we bring this out, we extrude it, press B, and things are looking fine. Let's try it again, 2D, just to make sure I'm not insane. And we get just a little bevel on the 2D side. So I'm actually really curious as to why that would happen, because we could just extrude it out and then it just reverts back to normal. So it's like, do we want it working better in 2D than in 3D? But I don't know. I'm going to have to send that video up the chain and see if something can be done about that, because I could see how that could be a confusing scenario. In fact, let's trigger it again. All you have to do is just draw in 2D. I guess it really depends on the point density as well, because we could click this, which will send it to laser cut, and we've cut a nice little angle cut, except this mesh got destroyed. I mean, I could see inside the mesh, which that's how you know you destroyed it with that cut. I mean, we could bring it back with the mod scroll and really examine our result here. And we see that some amounts we get lucky than others, but on others, this goes to show that we probably have some sort issues going on, and of course we do. We need weld to always be after bevel, and I think that could be what we're seeing here. In fact, once we change that, things get a lot more sensible. So while I'm not going to have an emergency update done for this, we're just going to have to deal with this next time. We will be checking into it. I mean, I like to spend a lot of time examining these bugs just to make sure that when we solve them, we're not breaking other things at the same time. Sometimes it's just an emergency patch to fix one thing will break several other things. So let's get in here and look at what we have. So we have our sort modifiers. Weld sort isn't on, which is good. You know, the whole sorting system is something that we need to rethink and make something a little smarter. So I'm actually drawing plans on paper, which is how a lot of ideas start, of kind of what I would want the next sort to be. And so I'm pretty sure when I propose it, it will be shut down. But I think by approaching it in pieces, we can actually make it possible. I at least want to try something called System B, which will be a alternative, and then we'll see if we can strengthen it to be able to replace the first system. And you know, that probably adds a little bit of complexity, but that's a little bit of insight as to, you know, how my mind works with things. Like, I don't always want to replace something outright. Like, you know, one of the few times I got mad at Blender was when they just deleted Carve, you know, because having two systems at that time was really experimental and enlightening as to how we can experiment with certain types of results based on, you know, having levels of control. So, you know, removing a level of control enraged me greatly. And so that's something that I try to avoid doing with you guys, which is why we have such an expansive, you know, control tilde panel, is because I want you guys to be able to have options and choices and to experiment and be unique. You know, it's not about doing what I'm showing you in a video. It's more about doing what you can do, or doing what you dream of doing, your vision. So we extrude this down and we just keep drawing some shapes, just random extractions. You know, sometimes I'll just draw extractions on extractions, just get really multi-leveled with them and then extract that. I mean, you know, this is the pre video, so I can just be a little weirdo. So we'll just come down here, extrude this, press Y, change it to extract. Y for extract, I don't know, for some reason I love it. So we'll put a new cube in here, and let's just give this one just a nice little starter bevel, maybe a sharpening. And we will just bring this down like so, and you know, some of these shapes, it's like, why do you use booleans? It's like, I don't think I could have ever made this shape with polygons. Like, if someone was like, hey, make that with polygons, I'd be like, are you sure? I could make it with booleans and turn it into it. Actually, you know, I guess they're both the same thing in this case, but look at this area, just seconds. And so the 3D cursors back in Box Cutter, I apologize for its removal. AR actually made a very strong case for why it should exist. And me starting this drawing off of the mesh and then coming in and trimming it like I am is that case. So, you know, you could use grid for this, but I find that grid is something needing a revisit in the shop. So we are, you know, making plans for that as well. Just kind of a regridding of sorts to make grid even better. I'm also always asking for any sort of information display. It goes against the rules of what Box Cutter is supposed to be, but personally I think users would be a lot less blind if they knew exactly what was going on the screen. And so I've come up with a rather interesting solution for that I'm eager to show you guys down the road. Because while I respect the rules, sometimes we must get creative with how we solve them. So I'm just going to remove the solidify and use shift bool instead to just give me this as a separate piece. I mean, I don't know why I'm even narrating this. It's just randomness. We just sacrifice one cube to make this one just a little more interesting. So because this one's rather simplistic, we can slap a bevel on it. The other one inside, I don't know, maybe not so much, but we can go through material scroll till we get some good combinations. And you know what? I'm the adventurous type. We slap a bevel on it because it ain't level if it ain't bevel. And that particular area It's like, does that need to exist? I mean, design wise, you know, these are the tough questions. Does it need to exist because it enhances this model? Probably not. So we can control X to just remove that from existence. And now we're looking at something a little better. And then of course the usual box cutter challenge, size 80 plane, you know, GZ -1, and we scroll that through some combinations and we just look at what we have in Look Dev. And that, my friends, is Box City. And I mean, I don't know, every day I wake up to do it, it's just happiness to me. So we'll go through and actually hit it with a smart apply, which will allow me to finally grab this edge and bevel it individually, but I'll need to put it up above the original bevel because you could see it kind of malfunctioning and that would have been problematic. We could also do the same thing here, except we're also going to need to roll that up a little bit. And you can see I can only roll it up so far, but that's fine. We just got our nice little rounded box here. You know, I like pressing Alt-VB to just quickly scroll through just random lighting scenarios. I mean, that's pretty much the intention of our light, is to basically light cubes, and things pretty much light cubes. I mean, it sounds crazy. Of course, in the future, I'll be taking that much further. But just a little bit of fun for now, for those who think I only mess with cubes. Cubes can just be anything. I mean, one day I want to do a series where I just take a cube and just turn it into like a spaceship or something. So, I mean, every day I cut a cube, I learn something just a little bit more about myself, about cubes. I don't know. I don't know why I'm monologuing about cubes. That could be a show on its own, just me, just talking about my love of default cube. I mean, this is the same cube. Well, no, it's not the same cube we started out with. I was gonna say this is the cube that I was raised up with, but it's not. I've also been contemplating that maybe on the next version, whenever you press Q and add camera, instead of adding a camera and just placing it where we place it, it actually places the camera, but it aligns it basically perfectly to your view. And, you know, on the camera, I can tell you right now that the camera is going to probably need like a, I've been hitting cameras with a 110 just because it gives me these really kind of stoic box cutter looks. So we'll change this to be 6,000 frames. I'm part of the 6,000 gang now. So the shadows are just something that's been haunting me lately. And I found that by either playing with the shadow settings, we can get something a little bit better. Like, let's see. I think we already got better shadows already just playing with the settings. Maybe it's through increasing the shadows. I mean, I do need some good shadows. In fact, we just leave it where it is. And we just go back to the lights and we look at our lights and we got all these area lights just kind of really pounding this thing. And we just find something a little more relaxed, and you know, we're in Box City, guys. And that's really my knuckle popper for starting the day. I mean, of course, we gotta save this baby as Q-Box, and then we can see how big my Q-Box obsession's got. I'm on Q-Box number 132. You've been following me for this Q-Box series. You win an achievement. Just kidding, not all of them are recording. But while we're moving, also like experimenting with basically making gestures while the camera is moving, and this is something that's a bit of an art. In fact, I play with this way more often than I care to admit, where I'm just in camera mode and I'm just really just working a shape like a rotisserie chicken, you know, like not that I work rotisserie chickens or anything, but I had imagined that we could get a nice little challenge going. I had to undo there, which caused a little camera flicker, but we just scrolled through some material scrolls and just get some really interesting quick cuts happening here, just while the camera's in freaking motion inside of our render. Thank you so much, Blender. Eevee is the greatest thing ever created, at least as far as rendering is concerned. You know, I was starting to saddle up for the Eevee, the Cycles life. You know, I was starting to get more and more GPUs, just slamming my PC with a ton of GPUs, just getting ready to just GPU it up, just get like Vitaly, have 16 GPUs in one computer sort of thing. And Blender just swept right in with Eevee and was like, you know what? We only support one GPU, but it's fast. It's fast. It's like, how fast? Well, this fast. Fast enough that I'm freaking cutting a box in motion, translating. I can go in here and basically shift click in order to put this as glass. And then I like to hit it with solidify, but press 2 in order to push it both ways. And we're just cutting in motion with Master Xeon. So, I mean, this would be a kind of a cool tutorial. I should probably, it's a shame that my best content is just privated now, but it definitely keeps the comments quieter. I'm telling you guys, the comments on these short videos are just so much easier to deal with. It's just like, hey, I failed to press this one button. And I think more users are able to jump into things than ever at this moment. So you must turn every setback into an opportunity. So I'm hoping that everyone's enjoying this release. We got a lot coming to this next one already. I was actually just in a lab taking a look at something in particular that I think you guys will be very happy about. You know, I always want to have this like kind of arcadey feel in Blender where you can kind of model, but it's like an entertaining experience, you know. And I think that's where, you know, people misunderstand me, because I mean, you can have fun with anything in 3D. You just got to have the right option at the right time, you know. Really just keep yourself flowing. It's the flowing aspect. Like if I ever had an opportunity to change Blender, that's all I would ever want to change, is just the flow. Like everything would be proposed as you know, just getting people from this point to this point. You know, like the VSE is great, the compositor is great, but how do we get them there? Do we get them there by clicking a couple of checkboxes and they're there? But, you know, in those checkboxes, I mean, as far as compositing is, of course, turning on some render passes and going and compositing and turning on compositing, then re-rendering it a second time, I think was still the process as far as I could tell. I mean, even with the VSE, right? Like the VSE is super duper powerful. Like if I ever could touch one thing, I would just touch the VSE. Like that thing is crazy. But it also can get a little bit slow when you start really stacking up the footage in that thing. So, I mean, if we could get improvements done just in that regard, you know, Blender, I always felt Blender had this attitude of, you know, we don't play with anyone, which is why, you know, we do everything. You know, you could, I don't know, I guess your guys are trying to replace everything in a way. Was kind of philosophy I took away from my analysis of, you know, using you guys for so long, is that, you know, like, sure, you can use Photoshop, but you could also use Blender as Photoshop, right? Like sometimes I'll just go in and just lay down text and bars and play with box shapes and just kind of use it like a 3D just generator of 2D works. I don't know, I'm a bit of a weirdo, but there's so much potential inside of Blender, and I just think it's you know, capable of being a little faster, just to the person that's trying to get in and get out before their wife starts yelling at them. You know, like, what are you doing on the computer again, honey? It's like, I know. I'll take out the trash in a minute. Just gotta set up this render. I just gotta set up this render, man. Like, you know, maybe all I want to do is just help those guys who just trying to model with a family. You know, just get in there and just be done very quick. You know, like that's why, you know, I'm such a big fan of the Surface. Like I feel like when Microsoft finally gets the tablet portion right, we'll be able to walk around and box cut and do things just, you know, we'll get life back. You know, like computers take up so much time, and I have nothing against sitting in front of a computer. However, I do feel like the more I spend mastering the computer, the more blind I get. And so maybe one day when I'm like, I am done with the computer, I'll just be blind and terrible. So we'll just scale that one out because I kind of caught that a little close. But I mean, we're still just sitting here cutting a rotating render, just going to town on this thing. So really, let's see how much town we can go to on this thing. Let's select the right shape and we cut like so. We switch to circle, and we don't have snap points, so let's bring up them snap points. Press J, send this over to the other side, and we're going to grab the draw dot, which is right here. Nope, wrong dot. It's this dot. Nope, that's the translation dot. All right, actually, which dot? Here we go. That's the dot that I knew was going to immediately pop the wrong direction. And voila, we have created our circle, and we can switch back to box. And while we're still in this rotisserie box cutter hops mode of just cutting inside of render, I mean, the FPS is just great. I did a previous video talking about the FPS in box cutter. If you have some super duper powerful computer, definitely check your FPS settings and make sure you're not sitting on 30 like a pleb. But you know, 30 is still a relatively good default, but we have found that people with messed up defaults aren't getting the intended experience, and they're getting box cutter being choppy and laggy, like as if there's a online connection to some servers or something. But it's just a fiasco. Other than that, I think this release has been fairly successful. You know, I wanted to give the team time to just chill out and relax and just sit back and let me work my magic of pushing the release on the interwebs and letting people know just how awesome the work that they have done has been, because you know, they always want to exponentially stack it up and work off of each other and play on things and expand on something that someone else had just done, and somewhat, and it's just great. It's resulted in just a tool of dreams, because I mean, if you're a modeler and you're truly one-to-one getting down everything I'm putting down, and I mean, I try my best, I do the release logs and everything, but I mean, if you're really getting down what I'm putting down as far as what we're trying to go for with this workflow, I think you're going to be in a good place. Like, one day Hops Prime will be that just ultimate version. You know, people always talk about how we're changing. We're Lego blocks. You know, people look at us from like 3 years ago and they're like, why'd you change from that? It's like, why would I stay the way I was 3 years ago? Why would I not continue to evolve as an artist to try to improve? And this is something I didn't take into consideration at the creation of Hard Ops. I thought I could just kind of do a static version of me in that place and time. And even as I made the version, more people got involved. I mean, even Machine, you know, made its contribution to Hops early on, which kind of enlightened me to how different people are using Hops at way higher levels than I'm even approaching things. So it's just something to consider. You know, I could actually watch this. I'm going to shift click Smart Apply, go in edit mode, grab this, press I, inset, control I, remove faces, select this thing, and we'll just slap a old solidify on it, select the main piece, and control click difference to give it a new bevel level. And somewhere we went wrong. I knew we would, trying to work so fast, so automated. And here it is. Here's the offending area. And I'm not going to stop the rotisserie, but I am going to struggle with that selection a little bit. There we go. We'll dissolve that one, and now we have the shape showing, and we're set again. And to continue on with this little adventure we're on, I'm going to shift right click, place the cursor there. We'll just change it to cursor, and I'm on to Z, which means that I could just basically draw, hopefully with cyclic mode off. And let's try that, and first cut a success. Actually, are these cuts a success? Oh god, I broke the rotisserie mode. I apologize, you guys. All right, let's try that again. So I have to do a little bit of click magic to make this thing work. In fact, let's undo this to a point, and let's think about this. I could press Q, change this to shade solid, place my cursor on top, shade it back as wire, and let's try that again. There's always a way to make it work. That's the thing. We want to make sure you always have the pieces to make it work. Like, some of these things is just hard to explain the whys or the millions of whys, because I definitely go through them, and I just go through it just being weird. I always tell the team, I'm like, we got to put ourselves in the feet of the user. You know, how's the user using us? What are they doing with hops that gets them so many bugs? you know, because I swear we put in so much work into bugs. But anyways, this video, jeez, this is just my morning box, and you just talk about a box while you're cutting a box. I'm telling you, like, if you still have your mother's, oh God, I broke the rotisserie mode again. All right, so where was I? So yeah, if you got mothers in this world, you know, give them a call. Give them a call on the phone. Ask them about their lives, so in case you don't know who they are, and just while you're talking to them, just cut a box, and just listen to their tell. I actually know nothing about anyone. Fun fact: I'm just like a mystery man. In fact, I need selected face, invert it, delete faces. And we will just solidify, and we need to do this before it gets away from us, so we'll control click difference, minimize that, and we'll talk about that when it comes back around. So we'll just work this side of the box. I think I just figured out a format for a tutorial called Around the Box with Master Xeon. Let me know if you guys would tune into that. But it'd just be us going around a box, just talking about different features, because if you could talk about it around a box, dude, that's a good feature right there. I mean, this is like the ultimate test of box cutter. And sometimes I have to pull back. Like, I'll be mad about something, and I just pull back, and I'm like, look, first of all, let's discuss the immense amount of victories that it has taken for this product to even make it to the level that it's making it now. So many times have, over the course of 2.8 development, have I had to wake up people and be like, hey, the tool's dead. The tool's completely dead due to an update. And we would have to, get an emergency fix out. And I'm so glad that we're not having to deal with that now, because it was probably driving people crazy. It was like being firefighters or something, except the fire was caused by software. So, in a way, it doesn't even matter. So I'll place my 3D cursor on top this time while I'm to be smart. And it will shift selected and control click difference to give it a itty bitty bevel. And we'll switch back over to Ngon. And with our cursor where it is, we can select a shape and just draw some boxes. Let's try that again. I don't know if that cursor, oh, okay, we're using object. We want to use cursor. Okay, that one's being applied. That one can also be applied. Like, it'll get a little twisty, so I'm having to press E like super fast. I'm just letting you guys know in case y'all are trying to do the around the box challenge with me here, prototype testing. But geez, guys, I am cutting around a box. I'm cutting around a box while the box is moving around. So let's get back to this piece, right? We mod scroll and we come back to this thing, right? We put our cursor on it. And I can just tell you that the cursor is not going to be there. I think the cursor is going through salt wire object. So now that we have it placed, we can just, and some of these maneuvers are like level 10 ninja maneuvers that in order to do it, you really have to be a box lord. Just saying. Like, I mean, I'm still trying to cut on this thing while it's disappearing. We'll come back and see how we did. I accidentally pressed 1. I meant to press it after the operation in order to get rid of my collection. So let's talk about just taking a piece out of this piece just in motion. So dangerous maneuver, level 10 maneuver. Let's do it, guys. And we just grab this face. We press I and we inset it. And we inset that face. And bam, we'll just hit that in here, select this shape, control click difference to give it a new bevel level. If you've been watching the remedial content on that, we see that there's a little bit of a mesh snafu there. We're going to bring that back. I got to talk a little faster because this thing's rotating. It's like a slow rotation, right? But when you're trying to model on it, it's a lot longer. Like, I mean, imagine if I was just talking, you guys would be like, geez, Xeon, be quiet, man. So how do I want to do this? I could snap the cursor here. We could select both of these. Wait, did I snap the cursor? Okay, I can't snap the cursor there. That's my mistake in life. That was when Xeon knew. He effed up. So I just got to dissolve it. Select both of these and maybe choose flatten. And we could just roll the wheel a couple of times till we get a, I think that X was looking good. Bow. So we leave it on the X, and now we have something good cooking. You know, we don't have such a good situation brewing over here. Things are questionable, so I'm just gonna C circle select to deal with this rotisserie box madness. And even though that was a bit of a hack, you know, that's life. So we are going to shade it back wire after putting our 3D cursor on top. I'm still under Ngon with panel line, and we're just going to just put some lines through. I mean, of course, it's getting computationally heavy because this is just madness. I mean, I should file a bug report and be like, hey guys, when I'm adding Boolean operations to an in-motion object, the EV viewport gets slow, and the devs would basically ban me. So we're just going to just keep hacking our little lines in there, and then let's see if we can go for a level 2. Actually, that shape is still alive. I should look at the logo. The logo is there to let you know if box cutter is still alive, in case you're the type of man to randomly try to cut a box while it's in motion. Not that this is an action that I particularly endorse. Doing on your parents' computers while they're away, do not do that. But just saying, you know, if they got an i9 and a decent enough GPU and you're keeping EV on LQ and you got a long enough time exposure happening on your camera rotation, then I don't know, you might be able to cut some cubes. I mean, this is all just experimental. Let's turn that back into a cut and apply it. Sometimes I'm just too fast with my keys. I don't think Blender can just register me sometimes, just out of control. So, you know, I was supposed to be doing a tutorial, but instead I got completely distracted for 30 minutes just destroying a box in motion. And I want the world to remember that. Box in motion. Actually, what did I change? Let's change the floor for sure. And let's change the lights. Something about these lights. Let's change the environment. You know, I don't know about the environment anymore. I mean, I have a million environments in here now, and one of them will make this box have the majesty that, you know, I desire for this quickie presentation that may never be seen unless I make it public. I don't know. This one's kind of a cool video. So we can just leave it on that, press VB, and roll through some lighting scenarios. You know, I actually liked you put a pink in there. I'm gonna go to a pink. I'm sorry. It's just some about pink to me. So we'll just save that. And that is actually a cue box. I mean, the previous one, kind of a level 1 cue box, but that one, I mean, come on. I cut a box in motion and did all these insets and everything just to show you guys the power of cursor on Z whenever you snap it. Of course, we'll jump it back to object, and let's just save this and make a new file. So that got a little crazy. It doesn't have to be so crazy. Let's get back to the topic at hand, which is talking about panel line. So if I go in here and I draw a line, the first thing someone's going to want to do is bevel it, actually. And unfortunately, they will need to click to apply in order to see their bevel, and that's actually not acceptable. So that means they are going to need to use release lock laser cut in order to get around this particular bug. It is something I was just kind of contemplating previously in this video, because even if there's a bug, I do want to propose a solution, and that is that you can click and it will put it in a release lock state, and then when you click it again, it will put it in the laser cut lock state. And even at this point, we could still press B and bring the bevel in, which should actually resolve this particular issue. So I think it's something about the density of it being close together or something. I mean, it's going to be a little tricky. So I wonder what will happen if we have bevel as the start state, which is the next level of testing something when it goes awry. So we don't see bevel on the initial drawn out shape, and that's because this is more than likely a V1 experimental version. But let's click it out into laser cut lock, and we still don't have the bevel, which is strange. So we just bring in a little bit of bevel. So now we have bevel on it, and it should remember that bevel was a thing. So this could be problematic. In fact, I have to press B in order to bring the bevel in, even though I have it as a start state. So, and then whenever I jump it out to laser cut, I almost feel like it jumped up in the value. So I'll be double checking the replay just to make sure that that wasn't the case. I'm always curious in some of these oddities that happen and trying to really understand how to laser pinpoint explain these bugs, because I'm telling you, you just say coder, you tell a coder, hey, this don't work, dude, they will just look at you. It's like, thank you for your report, sir. And I mean, I understand the same thing because people were so vague with me as well. And, you know, it's not people's responsibility to be completely informative, but it definitely helps with laser cutting down these issues. So we just go in and we press bevel, and I guess we can word that as, you know, this isn't completely aligned with the modifiers just yet as a system. It still is fairly new, but Ngon's primarily born to draw shapes. You know, if we go to Cyclic, or we press, let's see, C to turn this off, then it should actually draw this with bevel started. Let's double check. It could be a thing with just Ngon in general that Ngon doesn't support. Just in fact, here it is. Actually, definitely that time it multiplied to 2. So that means I have enough information to actually, you know, jump that up the chain, because there's definitely something happening there, which means that that might be needing to be checked into. Here we go. We will just double click, jump it into laser cut, just give it a very subtle bevel. And let's see if it's related to just view align. So this time I'm drawing on the surface. Of course, we can't have bevel points showing while we're moving, but we should at least be able to show them once you jump to the extrude. And I noticed that it did at least jump to the previous value that I had. So let's actually bring it back in and click it to jump it to laser cut. And call me crazy, but I didn't have it, these two meet at the junction area on this particular shape. I want to shift it to live and look at it, and I bet that the weld is at least in place, because if the weld wasn't in place, we would have gotten that. And, you know, I just want to point out that some of the things in Box Cutter is, you know, the systems can get quite complex with making these things work. And even something as small as just a toggle for an additional feature can sometimes require a rework of things under the hood due to it being a very large interconnected machine. So sometimes, in lieu of ensuring that other bugs don't exist, some things just don't get to retain certain features. So we see that weld was definitely on point for this case. So look, let's switch over to box, and we draw a box, and it's the most beveled box you've ever seen. I mean, that box is incredibly beveled. So let's bring that in to something like that. And so the next box should be beveled, and this box should be beveled. So it looks like for the next release, we may want to do a revisit of bevel. We did some tweaking with dealing with very large shapes, because in a previous version, there was definitely issues with that, where if you were drawing out a very large shape and beveling it, you wouldn't be able to bevel it without having to move the mouse like literally a metric mile. And so we wanted to definitely improve that for users this round. And I see that bevel is something that we may want to talk about internally a little bit and just discuss where we want to go. I mean, there's definitely a very expensive path planned for bevel. It's just, we can't do everything in a single release. In fact, doing it in stages is probably the best way to keep everybody calm and not scare them. In fact, let's lower this bevel. And we appear that after drawing a bevel very large and then drawing it very small, it kind of made things get a little wonky. So this is my work right here. Like, I'll spend just literally hours with a specific feature, just kind of going through the ins and outs to try to intricately understand the whys of why things happen, and try to point these things out. And I'm not saying that is your job or anything, just saying that you know, when I'm saying I'm trying to take a break from things, that's what I'm doing also in between planning out the next releases and getting new features added, fulfilling user requests, and all those sort of things. So we just draw the shape in, and I don't want the bevel, so I just put the bevel inside the shape. But let's go back to panel line. I want to understand panel line best and its explanation. So the best way to explain it is once you're using Cyclic in Ngon Line, this line basically overrides the modifier behavior. So there is no starting off Cyclic with, in fact, I'm pretty sure you can actually start Cyclic with array if you wanted to just very quickly cut a unique bunch of patterns into something. We can just do that, and then we can extrude and bevel it, which I'm pretty sure is how this tool was designed and intended to be used. In fact, you know, when this thing was made, it wasn't ready. I just saw it and immediately was like, hey, we got to release that to the masses right now. Like, that is, you just solved angle for box. You just solved angle for box. You just solved angle for box. We have to release this right now. I mean, if you think that users want to draw a box and then rotate it to perfection over and over and over, we've just added more keystrokes than we've saved. And line box is a course correction of that. So I assume that the final version will be most perfect. But for now, let's get in here and talk about it. So I think I got in my brain enough to basically go off of this. Let's see what template I got up in a Camtasia cam. We'll discard. I'll just open up. Let's see. I should do another topological conundrum of modeling today. Just that would be fun. Oh, down. I accidentally made Camtasia close again by telling it I wanted to record. I mean, I do want to record, but I also want to open the project and I want to put the recording into, saving some keystrokes in the process. Alright, someone's knocking on my door. Alright, back to recording. I guess maintenance wanted to replace my air filter. Real nice of them. Anyway, so that's the tutorial behind the tutorial. So this one's for box cutters. So I always open the self-cut mini and just use its format to just jump off of for creating all these tutorials. In the next hops, I plan to have different intros to run. So it's you know, I want to create something just like this animate bleach, where in the middle of the episodes they show these little transitions. You know, this is one of the cases of my wallpaper actually being a wallpaper that probably would offend somebody. So y'all can't see it. There we go. Something more appropriate. All right. Like I said, females are the ultimate hard surface form. The right twist of curves, and flat angles, and divots. I never figure it out. So let's see. I guess I could set up like a template example for people. I shouldn't just go in and be like, hey guys, here's how you use Ngon, and I mean, here's how you use mod shapes, and you just make mod shapes just like so, and just have people just make random nonsense burgers. We should have them make a like panel. Like a panel would be a good idea. Like let's see, quickest panel in the world, right? Like you come in, you scale it down. You of course got to apply scale. If you don't apply scale, you're in for a bad time. You know, we'll just take out the middle, just using some box cutter, and just grab all this stuff, and we'll actually just apply visual geometry to mesh, bring it up a little bit, and I'm just brainstorming out loud here. Of course, the final version will be much more boring. You can press C, of course, to switch to Cyclic in the middle of Ngon, just in case you're just needing to cycle between them on the fly. But I think now, as I'm using it, I remember the rules being in place that, hey, this one's exempt from the rest of the systems at this time until we actually put forth the work that's needed to actually make them be interconnected. So it's not so much a bug requiring an emergency patch, more of a just a byproduct of it being so new to this world. In fact, I did not like that angle. I mean, it's just 5 degrees is the difference between life or death sometimes with these angles. So that can actually be appropriate. We'll put a rigid body on it, add rigid body, which means that now it'll fall. We'll control a visual geometry to mesh, select everything, and we'll make this thing a rigid body world, but we'll make it passive. We'll select this thing and we'll make it a rigid body active, but we'll select this one and make it a rigid body passive, which means that this object shouldn't even have any parenting relationships. So that's actually the intended result, except it's not the intended result. We want to go under our physics settings, which just got a little bit harder to find every time. We can go under mesh, surface response. Like, the more I play with these settings, the more I realize I can find some very good settings to set this stuff to that would just make it easier for us to pull off what is needed. In fact, I wonder if I could make it fall into whole. Maybe just slap some zeros on that thing. It's our only hope in this world. But that's actually close enough for what I'm wanting. So we can select all this stuff, press P, separate by loose parts, shift S, origin to geometry. And for this thing, it's not going to evaluate it with the Boolean in place, so we will need to make the visual geometry real on the mesh. And it's going to just fall through. So how can we fix that? Well, my first thought is dice it. Dice it, dice it. So we'll dice it, hit it with the double dice. And that got us a little bit further. However, let's put a triangulate on it. Maybe it is a calculation thing. Nope. All right, so I don't even want to bother with going into this in the tutorial if I can't solve it. Look at me having to now solve this BS. All right. Like, you think you'd be able to make stuff just fall in a box? Like, I mean, let's just select it. I mean, if it's going to be difficult, you're going to make me automate you. I'm just saying. Because I will. Let's also dice everything. So everything has now been diced, and we will also slap everything with a triangulate modifier. So now everything has a triangulate modifier on it too. And that's actually almost good enough, except that is not good. Wait, sorry, I apologize. That is not good enough. Let's select that again. Let's set it all to 0, and let's copy to selected. Now they're all 0. Let's change this to be just box. Let's look at our solver settings. Under our rigid body world, we have steps per second solver iterations. Let's change both of these to 256 and turn on split impulse. And so now we're actually getting somewhere. So it looks like we may have to come up with some sort of physics assistance tool for Blender users to just make this easier, because this should be a lot easier. That's all I'm saying. Like, I mean, look at the process I just went through for this. That's how you get automated right there. Just make it hard for me just one too many times. I will automate it. In fact, I'm just having some fun now. I mean, might as well. We finally figured out how to get things to land where they're supposed to. Looks like it has something to do with solver iterations. All right, so they're not going to take that. Ta-da. So I actually think I figured it out enough to possibly bring that up in a tutorial. Like, hey, if you're messing with physics, you know, play with them solver iterations, bro. Or maybe it's the split impulse. And let's turn it back off. And let's change this 0.02. Always love slow motion simulation stuff. I don't know. I'm just a weirdo. Just, I don't know, just something hypnotizing about it. I mean, we changed this up to like 500. Actually, we could raise the speed. 0.02 is just way too slow. So it's just a subspace, subspace collapse of plates here. I'm sure one of these settings was not a good idea. I should figure out which one it is. Solver iterations. We switch this to 1. If we change this one to 1, and then we go back. Oh, let's change it to 30. Play with that. And let's change it up to 60. And let's change it up to 120. I mean, this is like my method of madness for like understanding Blender basically is I will just keep multiplying things procedurally and dividing them by half to understand, you know, what their relationships are to each other instead of just cranking it like Soulja Boy, right? Like I want to know what half of this does, double what this does. Maybe that little 4 that you put on numbers, what that does. This thing is catching a lot of initial velocity. I think we can move that one. So we see that the velocity build up because I mean that's what it looks like, right? You look at these fall and they hit and they have such velocity that they punch each other out. Like, what's going on here? Why are these blocks so aggressive? So let's do split impulse. And split impulse. Dang. Look at this one. It's just such a fighter. It's like, what are your collision settings, yo? Let's actually play with the margin, right? Because things probably do need a margin. So 0.001, and then we'll right click and copy to selected and see what we get. And that actually is a lot better. I mean, what's that piece going to do? Is that piece going to fall? Is it going to stay? You'll never know. We'll never know inside this frame range. But let's change it to 0.5. And it falls a lot faster now. But that looks good. Let's actually hit it with the old calculate mass. So we calculate the mass. And once you hit this with the little beans, bound. Maybe it's not the weight of beans. It's like probably drywall or something, you know. Let's actually pick something more realistic. Like, what are these things? Their mass is based. They're garbage, just hot garbage, right? It's like the weight of Autodesk. Sorry. You know, we'll change it to crushed ice. It's just so cool. I'm actually happy that I was able to sort this out because that means that maybe I can do a just a destroyed panel as a tutorial. I don't know. Still pondering it. It would require a little bit of shift bowling. So, no, actually, I could use a custom cut. I could make it a custom cutter and then make it the cutter for cutting such a floor tile. So, you know, let's think about design a little bit though, because if you are designing a floor tile, you can't just have it be a simplistic BS little shape. Gotta make something that's cool but fast, but people come out to tutorial a winner. So maybe a couple of these numbers on it, you know, I call those advanced bevels, just bevels. Everybody loves a bevel. we could chop it out first, and then I could talk to people about the concept of basically cutting cutters, right? Which is where you have a cutter. And I'm pretty sad that this doesn't work, but I really wanted to be able to draw an end gun and press J in order to make it a join and then have it sit on top of the shape. But because of, I think, a small bug with either Ngon or booleans, we have to move it up just a tad to get it to be offset properly, which allows us to create like these little divots. And I just have been experimenting with them lately, and I just wish that feature would have worked out. I mean, you could cut, of course, but I wanted join to be cool. And to make join cool, we just got to offset it just a little bit more than usual on join. So, I mean, the easiest way for me to deal with that personally is to just expose the parameter, which will get me complaints about box cutter having too many options. So in a way, I gotta forget this discussion ever happened in order to prevent complaints from people that you guys don't even know. But I'm telling you, the amount of mails I get, I'm trying to minimize it. Like, I really am trying to relax. So every time I'll be napping and my watch vibrates, I'm just like, oh my God, what is it? Who has died? And it's someone that's like, hey man, how do you contact machine? You could type that into Google, man. Why did you write me a personal message for this? So we're just kind of experimenting with our Ngon tool here. They're like, you know him. Yeah, I eat lunch with him all the time. Me and Machine, down at the lake, catching fish, turning them into decals. That's me and Machine, all right. So continuing on, we're just cutting angles in this. And I think that actually will suffice. So what if we wanted to cut panels out of this? Actually, let's make it a logical tutorial where instead of doing all the rigid body stuff, I can save that for the future. If you're watching the extended version, you've caught stuff that I will probably never make a tutorial out of, because some things just cause too many questions to be asked. So when it comes to making a panel, one of my favorite ways is starting off with Ngon. And we could press T to add some thickness to it. And Ngon is a pretty by the book tool. I mean, it's been a part of box cutter for a moment, so we've had a moment to refine it. However, it is just a line to make a shape after all, and I want so much more from it. So sometimes I relent on a tool and then I'll come back in like a second phase. It's always warn team members. I'm like, hey, I'm just gonna relent today, but we're gonna have a second phase on this, because there's some ideas that I think would make you go crazy right now, but maybe telling you in the right light on the right day as the full moon is rising, you'll feel a lot better. So I mean, for the most part, I love making these panels using Ngon and just raw Ngon. In a way, you don't even need panel for this. So we just draw a cyclic Ngon line, and it has no thickness, which is a weird way to see line. We can press T, give it some thickness, and we'll just move this shape over, get it right where we want, and just spacebar to apply. And we'll do the same here. Just draw a shape. Like sometimes you want to draw using only the line, which is why cyclic Ngon exists. So we have this shape. Let's say we want to mirror it, right? We can just press 1, it'll mirror it. Press shift 1, it should mirror it to the other side. But we actually don't even need it for this case because it's actually already mirrored to the other side. So the box cutter mirror probably already detects that, but more realistically, it probably just needs a flip mirror to be added as an option. So that one is on the actual to-do list. But I spend a lot of time testing these tools, and then I generate lists of what I need done with them. But, you know, if you're one of those people out there curious in our current itinerary, the next thing to deal with at this moment is kit ops. Kit ops is currently under the knife. So, you know, at some point a better kit ops will be coming soon. That is all. And we're just drawing some panels, and I mean, how do I get started with box cutter? I hear people say. Man, how do I get started with hops? I hear people say out there. It's like, have you tried pressing Q, my lord? Have you tried pressing Q? You know, because Q does some things, man. You know, have you tried reading the tooltip, my lord? Because the tooltip tells you some things. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just saying. Let's read them tooltips, guys. Someone actually wrote me a support issue yesterday about a tooltip error. There's one tooltip error in box cutter. I take pride in its existence because it shows that, you know, even me, the guy who's supposed to be correcting everything, makes mistakes. I mean, besides my usual mistakes, but I mean, even things I intentionally try to fix can still have a few mistakes, and we'll get it if you spot it. It's just a callback to the past. Nothing major. Nothing you'll see from me using, because I don't need to use the tooltips. I wrote them. If you see me use a tooltip in a video, it's because I'm showing you the tooltip. Or, you know, sometimes I like to read the tooltips myself. Just make sure that verbiage is good. I'm pretty big on verbiage. A lot of things I do post pre-release is just fixing verbiage on things, just to make sure that they're saying the right words. I mean, we just took this panel. Actually, let's try it again. What the hell? Okay, there's my material scroll. I was like, what? And we are good. I mean, what else is there, guys? What else is there to talk about? We can, actually, didn't mean to do that. I meant to give it a brand new bevel on the block and weighted normal to christen it. And I feel like weighted normal isn't doing its job today. I don't know. Might be the version of Blender I'm using. Could be that auto smooth isn't on, but auto smooth is definitely on. Could be my material selection. Could be that I need to harden the edges here, but that is already going on, which should harden it up pretty good. We put a mirror on it, and the mirror is being placed before the weighted normal. It's like, what's you know, it could be an orthographic thing with shading, but I don't know. I got my eye on it. I ain't trying to catch no funny business when I'm rendering, you guys. Just want y'all know, when it comes to rendering, for me, serious business. So, you know, we're like an hour in, and I still haven't recorded this tutorial. You know, welcome to my life. You know, I was thinking earlier, I was like, I should pretend it's the Sabbath and just take a Sabbath, but I should continue with my endeavor of continuing on making these videos daily and not let anything stand in my way. You know, sometimes people catch me, they're like, hey, you're making an excuse. I'm like, get out of here. It's not an excuse. Also, you can't use it just to conveniently counteract a explanation. All right, so we get something like that, and I think that would be a pretty good result for showing it in action, or showing panel line in action. I should squeeze my cat for good luck and take a drink of water. All right, so the next thing we'll do here is just Control N, make a new file, and let's do this. However, how do I want to package this? Do I want to say, hey guys, new to Box Cutter is mod shapes, and mod shapes are these icons that are to the left of your top bar options for shapes. For example, Box has mod shape of line box, which is a line you can draw that will allow you to position your box prior to extrusion. So basically a line that becomes a box. As simple as that is what line box is. On the other hand, circle has no counterpart. However, you are able to make circle jump into line box. So here we are drawing circle. If we click it, we actually have toggled circle onto line box. And if we toggle it, we're back into line box. So the circle option is just kind of a placeholder for now until there's a more experimental circle made. But really with circle, there's so much versatility to circle that you can draw a circle. You can press Control D and lower these segments into little mini helpers. So here we are with 4, we have 6, we have 8, and 6 is a pretty hard surface count for a circle, but so is 32 and 64, you know. In fact, you might notice that I don't use a lot of circles in videos, and that's because circles are probably the most computationally heavy things to process on a computer. So, you know, I always keep the circles to a minimal, and also circles have different rules when it comes to extractions and proportions, and being the guy who's working on these tools, I know that there's more work needing to be done with extractions and circles to be absolutely perfect for just repeating circles. So I just hold out for that day, but rest assured, it is close. We should make it where if you Control Shift Click drag it, it changes segments though. Custom also doesn't have a mod shape of any kind at this time, and that's because custom is custom. Custom deserves its own tutorial series talking about what it has to offer. But with Ngon, we have classic Ngon where you can just draw a shape. And of course, in my case, the shape is covered up by being a wire, but you can just draw shapes. But you can also draw just a line. And with your line, you're able to do things like press T in order to increase the thickness, E, extrude. And then in the extruded state, bevel is then unlocked too, because Ngon Cyclic is a bit of an experimental mode that still is in the process of being refined. Bevel doesn't completely support it from 2D mode, so I do want to show that in advance. Right here we have a shape that is paused but is still alive. If we press B to bevel it, you can see that it gets problematic, but once you begin extruding it, it actually goes back to looking the way it's supposed to. And I've actually determined that this is probably something that we need to check into with the sorting, but really isn't the most egregious. And we could even take this shape, shift it to live, and convert geometry to mesh, take this, select all the way to the other side, and just control mark that. However, what I'll do is actually mark the boundary, and then we'll bevel it, but instead we'll let's do that again. Let's put a line down the middle actually too. And let's select the boundaries. So there's some things I can't show because they're just too complex, I feel. So we'll practice with them here. So in edit mode, N is supposed to flip the normal, but we see that that's not actually happening. So it works with circle. I've always wondered why. I bet if we turn this into a gigantic Ngon and then we press in, we can actually get that reverse bevel that we're talking about. So that's something that I should probably also showcase in the video. Saying something like, hey, when you use Ngon Cyclic in conjunction with hard ops, you could just draw an Ngon, and if you press C, we can make it cyclic, where we can extrude it in, and if we press B, we can bevel this, and we can shift it to live, where we can then bring this in to be a little closer to the top, and Control A, all geometry to mesh, and we're just going to select everything to here, press F, and Control click mark in order to basically reverse bevel this. And so if you're trying to create an interior bevel that's going into the shape individually as well, individually of the main bevel, that is how you would do such things. However, once you start getting these things converging up here, it does become a bit of a balancing act. So, sometimes one step too far is just all you need in order to get some very unruly results. So some of you might be wondering why I never use clamp, and that is because if we have clamp on, we could see that clamp is actually a little strict at times. And so I feel that these limitations can sometimes be even more limiting. However, we can use this to our advantage. For example, if we put a weld, we can just have it welded afterwards, just kind of cleaning things up. And now we have a really solid manifold modifier system we can start playing off of going forward that shouldn't have too many issues. So before I start, let's double check and make sure that all right, there we go. Always like to respond to comments. So one of the things about hops is I never plan to do any paid content around hops personally. I do want to promote users doing it and create an ecosystem for others to create paid content in the hops ecosystem. But I personally want to just be the curator of it, like Dr. Ford in Westworld. I just want to curate everyone's experience and just ensure they have the best tools and workflow for making such things happen and quickly. So let's see, how do we want to do this video? We just want to talk about panel lines. Let's just keep it very simple. Is my tip video for today going to be, by going to Ngon, you can just draw Ngon, which is a custom shape that you can hold control in order to snap to an angle. When it comes to adjusting your angle, in fact, I still have laser cut lock on. In fact, I should have it on for the purposes of the video. But for the purposes of this video, I'll be having release lock on, which means that instead of shapes just drawing and applying, I will shift click this to turn on release lock laser cut. And what this means is when I draw a shape, it will actually drop it into a pause state, allowing me to click it one more time in order to apply, just in case it's getting away from me too fast. So we'll just draw a shape, click to apply, and we have this moment now where we can reflect and think about things like, do we want to put a bevel on the shape? Do we want to hold shift and bring it to live? Or we can then cut this shape to get something unique in there. In fact, I wanted to shift it to live so that I can go in edit mode and then rotate the shape to get a more interesting result, something like that. And then we can of course go back to Ngon and just begin making cuts. And we can just choose to click to apply. So sometimes you really want your click to just go through. Like we can see right here, I'm actually pretty confident that I want these cuts to go through, and I don't need this stop and deliberate mode anymore. So we'll shift click laser cut lock to go back and just turn that off. And it looks like we already turned it off. So we can just now just do our cuts and just hit space bar. That one probably need a little adjustment, and we can just keep working. I must also add that, there isn't 2D extraction at this time. However, I did really want it. I wanted the, make a fool out of me, why don't you? Let's pause that and look at this, because that is, in a way, that's an extraction. But in another way, it's not cutting the shape into the mesh. So, what we'd actually need would be the inside of this, but it's good to see that the thought was there and the attempt was made to at least have extract return something when done on a two-dimensional shape. In fact, Let's see, should I just talk about just mod shape Ngon? Just the videos just about Ngon. Ngon Cyclic. Or let's see, Ngon mod shape Cyclic. Because I dream of having future mod shapes, like a drop down of the special types of shapes. Like Ngon is this thing, but I mean, I really want to visit it proper someday in a future release and make it truly the tool that it's supposed to be. I mean, people are always writing me about curve support. Believe me, I know. I just want the best curves. I just want good curves. The last time the curve system, I wasn't using it that much. I was just beveling points. Never use a curve system. This time I want a curve system that I can use and take pride in, that actually works the way, like these tools that I love. A different type of curve system. So let's actually close that and we'll reopen Blender again. And let's do this. So how to talk about Ngon Cyclic. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about the topic of Ngon Cyclic. In order to best show it, we will just delete this cube and Shift A, add a plane. And with our plane, we can actually go up to the top bar and just change our shape to be Ngon. And so Ngon typically starts in something called cyclic mode, which is a mode where the shape is closed, meaning that whenever I perform a cut, the cut goes all the way through. Whenever I triple click on the final point, in the event that you don't want the shape to be applied on that final click, you can shift click laser lock or release lock and actually bring up the option for release lock laser cut, which I'll be using for a moment to just show in action. So now I can draw a shape, and whenever I triple click to drop it, instead of releasing it onto an operation and completing it, it will just allow me to take this moment to grab it and move it and rotate it and scale it and do all the things you would typically expect to do with the shape that you've drawn like this. However, there's also an additional feature of Ngon called Cyclic, which has the hotkey of C. So if we started off drawing a shape as Ngon, I can press C and that will actually toggle off cyclic mode, which no longer connects the shape to the last point, creating a panel line. And you see that this shape is actually, you know, the thickness of the line that we're going to create. You can press T and actually adjust the thickness of this line. An issue that can possibly arise with people experimenting with this is due to the newness of this tool. Whenever you press B in a two-dimensional state, you'll see that it may have some issues with bevel. However, once you extrude, it begins actually showing the bevel properly. So this is something that we will be looking into and addressing in the future, is the way that it handles 2D bevel versus its transition into 3D. But as long as the bevel actually goes through on the way, that's all that actually matters. So we can just continue on just drawing with Ngon, just creating shapes in cyclic mode, triple clicking in order to laser cut it, pressing B in order to adjust the bevel. And this is actually probably the intended way to use Ngon Cyclic with bevel at this time, is using release lock to triple click it into this state. And then from there, you're actually able to bevel it properly, since the 2D mode appears to be having a small issue at this moment. But this is a general case that happens with new tools. Once we get it right, it becomes fairly concrete. But Ngon Cyclic is but a sub mode of Ngon. So it's something that I've just been experimenting with lately in the content I've been showing you guys. However, I do recommend spending some time just kind of practicing with it in a control situation like so, just to become acquainted with it. Of course, with Ngon, there's also a drop down in the snapping area where you can set up permanent snapping for Ngon, and that will make it where you no longer have to hold control in order to use Ngon, and you can just use it, click to apply. And if you get tired of the release lock mechanism of things, you can always just shift click to bring up your sub menu and actually turn release lock laser cut off, which will just send us back to the Wild West of getting us this. And perhaps you may not want that. So for that reason, having the release lock, which has its own video by the way, allows you to kind of stop the system from processing all the way through as it normally would, and allow you to methodically think about some of the changes that you hope to create. But that is basically Ngon Cyclic in a nutshell, at least as far as getting started with using this particular tool. Anytime that you get tired of Ngon, you can just toggle it back off using the option in the top bar. And then we're back in regular Ngon where we can draw the traditional shapes that we know and love. But we can also just toggle it back off in order to go into cyclic mode, in which case I have Ngon permasnap, reducing the need for me to hold control. But I still have release lock on for laser cut, allowing me to take that intermediate moment to bevel it prior to the extrusion being completed. So I hope that gives some insight to how you would use laser cut with release lock, and that'll wrap up this video. Geez guys, I did a 1 hour and a half behind the scenes to do a 3-minute video. I am terrible. I should just pepper all sorts of crazy effects in this thing. Just like make it show like my old video on release lock. And in fact, let's do a little bit of that. In fact, I'll bring up my screenshots directory, and let's bring up the 71V, 716 release log. You know, we're just hanging out here, so y'all can hang out with me while I add this in there. So right there is a good moment to showcase this. So we'll place it there, and we'll just have that fade in. And there's a mistake right there. I hate when I watch myself make a mistake in a video. Alright, so I just actually recorded this video, so I don't have groundhog memory or goldfish memory where I forget things. Pause the music. Newness. I said newness in a video. There I'm using made up words. Is newness a word? Due to the new edition. God, I can't even think of the right word. I'm an idiot. And just caution, bevel with cyclic. I mean, like I said, I always want people to be aware that issues exist, so they can also be happy when they see these things resolved. Because I mean, say I send the coders back in on this, right? Probably going to be a few hours of work, and then in the process of fixing it, it's going to require that they fix something else that's associated with it, which is the untold thing that's always connected with just simple fixes. It's like, oh, it's just simple, just fix that one thing. It's like, well, I mean, if everything's interconnected, then by making an exclusive choice, we've introduced an edge case that will break other things down the road. So in lieu of just having the product be the most stable and the most fast, that's life. We'll get back to it, promise. If you think you're obsessed with perfection, you have nothing on me. So let's see. We'll call this people are going to be like, you released a 5-minute video. It's like, yeah, 5-minute video, you guys. That was what I did. So on the hop side, there's quite a few things to talk about. If we just make a new session, we look through our queue menu. I haven't really meant to do a video about mirror, but today's not the day. I'm actually, I should talk about something edit mode related. There's two shape, there's curve extract. So curve extract, I'm pretty sure I talked about curve extract already. In fact, for a fun time, kids, just mark a cube and curve extract. And so right there, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. That's what I was supposed to get. And I think I mentioned that before. All right, while I'm converting, I might as well answer a support issue. Let's see what it asks, how to get a... Actually, isn't the answer in the video? All right, so the first video is complete, cut and print. So the next one is on the hop side. So let's open her up. Just a hops project. Been using rendering with hops as my template. And I think I'll actually do that one later in the afternoon. We'll see how this one does.